Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Holly Daniels. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Los Angeles, California, and I am so excited to be part of this conference today. Thank you to Shelley Young and everybody who put this together. It's such a wonderful way to support and find community with families who are going through crises with their young adults and adolescents. My session today is entitled Supporting the Siblings and Bringing Recovery Home. And we're going to talk a lot today about different ways to support the other family members who might not be the ones directly dealing with the substance use or mental health issue, but are still definitely being affected by what's going on in the family system. You know, a lot of times what happens is we have one of our children struggling with a substance use disorder or mental health issue, and they need so much of our attention and they take up so much of our time and resources, and the other siblings in the household either feel neglected and have some resentments, and they don't know what to do with those feelings, or they just get lost in the shuffle, and they even might want to help and want to participate in the family in a helpful way, but they don't know how to do that either. And so we're going to talk a lot today about how we bring these recovery principles home and work together in a family systems dynamic to help every single member of the family feel like they're part not only of what's going on in the struggle, but part of the solution and part of working toward health and happiness and more fulfilling, healthy lives for the entire family system. So we're going to talk first of all about family systems and what that means, what it means to work within a family system dynamic. We're going to then talk about family shame and some of the things that can maybe go wrong a little bit within the family system that knock the family system out of balance and make it uncomfortable for the siblings, for other family members, for everybody in the family system, and how to kind of overcome that shame and help everybody feel empowered and able to work together instead of feeling like they're always working at cross purposes. And then we're going to talk about specifically about family support and finding family support and feeling open about looking for the right support for your family system, including the siblings and everybody in the family system along the way. And as I say family, I just want to make sure that I mean any and all kinds of families. We might be dealing with a divorced family, a single parent family, and a non-traditional family. Any and all families are families, right? And your family system is your family system no matter what it looks like. Family systems are very individual and unique, and the first thing we're going to talk about is actually understanding your family system and the dynamic of your family system. We're going to talk about understanding family systems, that all family members are interconnected. And we're going to talk about the power of setting family goals as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just acknowledging that family systems exist, right? To talk about the fact that there's each individual member of the family, and then there is actually the family itself is its own entity. Family systems have their own personality. They very often, whether they are said aloud or not, have their own rules, have their own structures, often have secrets. And so we want to just be open and talk about the family system as its own unit and talk to all of the different family members about the fact that they belong to this family system. And that we know that when one member of the system is in crisis, so when we do have our adolescent or young adult who is struggling with substance use or other mental health issue and needs support, it often means that there might be an imbalance in the entire system that we haven't been aware of or we haven't been addressing. And so this is actually a time to really look at the family system with compassion, with kindness. I know it might be scary to think about looking explicitly at your family system, but we're going to do this with love and in a forward-thinking, strength-based way to, take a look at the family and where it might have been not in balance or where we might have missed ways to be more connected. Because when we do have one member in crisis, it just often is kind of shining a light on some unhealthy dynamics within the family system. So how do we go about acknowledging the family as a system? Well, we all get together with all the family members and we start talking about what the family looks like and how the family works together. And as a matter of fact, if you do have a young adult or adolescent in crisis who is in treatment, you will know that the treatment center, hopefully, is making you do some of this family work and having everybody in the family sit down together and talk about the family dynamics, and really recognizing the power of the family system. The family system that we are a part of has so much to do with our own identity, with how we see each other, with how we see ourselves, with how we see the world. And so we really have to talk about these family dynamics, and how they're influencing each individual. And I am talking about even including the younger siblings. And I know a lot of parents get very worried about bringing their younger children into some of these conversations. And in fact, some treatment centers won't allow children under the age of 11 or 12 to be part of like their family weekends or their family intensives, just because they're not going to be able to really control what's being talked about in the details maybe of some of the behaviors and drug use that some of the clients are participating in. So I understand the concern about bringing younger family members into these conversations, but we have to do it. I promise you that your younger children know that something is wrong. If you have one of your children in crisis who's having a substance use issue or a mental health issue, I promise you the other siblings know that something's amiss, whether they know exactly what it is or not, but they understand that there is a stress in the family, even if they are really young, even if they're toddlers, or they know that there is something wrong, because in these family systems, in our family system, there's so much communication going on that is nonverbal, right? There's a lot of energetic communication going on, and young children especially are very sensitive to these nonverbal communications, and they know that their parents are tense. They know that the other siblings are worried. They know that something's going wrong with somebody in their household, and we can't pretend with them that everything's fine. I had this family actually come in to see me last year, and they had a 14-year-old who was unfortunately using IV heroin, and they had a 7-year-old at home. And they came to see me after there was a crisis event, and the 14-year-old was luckily put into treatment, and actually he's doing very well now, which I'm happy to say. But when the parents first came in to me, they said, "Oh my gosh, we have this problem. Our 7-year-old has, she's been asking us, what's wrong? What's wrong? I know something's wrong." And we keep telling her, because she's so young, we just keep telling her, "Nothing's wrong. You're safe. You're fine. Don't worry. Nothing's wrong. Don't worry about it. Nothing's wrong." But now the 14-year-old went to treatment and is not in our house anymore, and so we have to tell the 7-year-old something, because she recognizes that her brother isn't in the house anymore. And I said very gently to these parents, look, first of all, it's good messaging to tell your 7-year-old that she's safe and that she's okay. It's not the best messaging to say to her nothing is wrong. Because I promise you, the 7-year-old knows something is wrong. In this case, the 7-year-old was asking, what is wrong? What's going on? And for the parents to say, nothing, it's fine, right? It's almost like gaslighting her a little bit. And so she recognizes internally she has these feelings and realizing that something is wrong in the family, but the parents are saying to her, nothing is wrong. And of course, they're doing it with every good intention. They're not trying to be bad parents, but it isn't the right messaging, because it's actually setting up a dynamic for family shame, and for that girl to have some shame too, which we're going to talk about in a second. But it also just creates more disconnection and less connection, because the parents aren't really being honest. So what do you say to a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old? I don't think that you need to get into the details of IV heroin use, but you can say, your sibling is having a really rough time. Your sibling is really struggling. He's really feeling sad. He's really feeling angry. He's really feeling frustrated. Um, and we're going to do everything we can to find him the support he needs and to help him get better. Because everybody struggles sometimes. And your brother is struggling right now, and we're going to do what we can to be there for him and help him get better. And you can absolutely say that to any child of any age, and you have to be able to recognize within the family system that something is going amiss, because the kids know, the siblings know, I promise, they already know. I had another family, 3 teenagers, and one of them was struggling and was in treatment, and the parents actually said in a family session, well, we've just told the other teenagers it's none of their business. They just don't need to think about it or don't need to talk about the fact that their sibling is in treatment because it's none of their business. And it was so funny to me. I was thinking there's so much languaging in our society right now about codependency and enmeshment, and we shouldn't be codependent or enmeshed. But the truth is, in a family system, we are interdependent. We are healthily dependent on each other, and that's okay. That's actually a healthy family system. And we are all influenced and affected by something that's going on with somebody else in the family. And so it actually is their business what's going on with their sibling, and they should be able to talk about it. And they probably had a lot of feelings about it, not all positive, right? A lot of times siblings develop feelings of resentment and frustration that all of the attention and all of the energy of the family is going to the sibling who is in crisis. And it's okay to talk about those things. And so what we can do is use the power of the family system to also work together and create some family goals that each member of the family would like to see. Ways to help the family feel more supportive, feel more cohesive, and feel like a place of health and well-being and a source of strength and support. To recognize it is all of our business. It is everybody's business. That something is happening within the family. And so how can we work together and set some family goals? You can, in a family meeting, really explicitly, openly create a list of family goals and have every family member participate and say, you know, this is what I would like to see in the family system. I'd like to eat more meals together. I'd like to laugh together more. I'd like to have a group chat, a group text that we all contribute to once a day so that we can all just know that we're connected to each other. Your 5-year-old might chime in and say, you know, I would really like to color together every morning in coloring books, or once a week anyway. And you can say, okay, that's a great idea. We'll all get together at least once a week and do some coloring together. And everybody can contribute toward this family goals sheet. You can also do a suggestion jar. I had a family, they had a 12-year-old who wanted to create and kind of decorate a suggestion jar like you would have at work. And so if anybody during the day had something to suggest for an activity for the family to do together, or had even a critical suggestion to critique something, but it had to be put in a compassionate way, they could write that and put that in the suggestion jar. You can have a family gratitude list, which I think is a beautiful thing, just on the counter at all times, and say that at least once a day everybody has to write something on the gratitude list. In the morning when everybody's milling around getting ready for their day, that they write something on the gratitude list that they're thankful for. And it can be something they're thankful for about the family, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be something that each individual member is thankful for, grateful for in their day that day. And just the practice of having everybody's gratitudes on the same list together is really powerful and really wonderful. And we're just finding this positive energy and being able to talk more together about the family dynamic and the family system, and to know that yes, the family may be struggling at times, and that's normal and that's okay, and we can talk about it, and we can actually use those struggles as opportunities to be more communicative and supportive and move forward. And that leads me into the next section here, which is talking about family shame. A family system can develop shame just like an individual can. We're going to talk about how to embrace imperfection and talk about struggle within the family and outside of the family, and the power of sharing about our struggle. The truth is that shame is very, very damaging. Um, for an individual who has shame, shame for those who don't know is just an inherent feeling that you're bad or that you're wrong or that you're not okay. It's different than guilt. Guilt is a feeling that you get when you do something wrong and you feel bad about it. That's actually healthy. We want to have a conscience, and if we do something to hurt somebody else, we want to have a little guilt about it. That's okay. But shame is different. It's not about what you do. It's about just this inherent feeling that you're wrong or you're bad or you're sinful or shameful. And shame can be so damaging because, first of all, when you feel shame, when you feel like you are inherently bad or inherently wrong, it's impossible to have healthy, authentic, reciprocal relationships with other people because you don't believe that anybody would want to be in relationship with you. You think, I don't deserve relationship, I'm bad, I'm wrong. Who would want to be in relationship with me except for maybe other bad people, right? And so you really have a disconnection from others, and just that pain of carrying around these feelings with you always, that you're bad or wrong or don't belong, is so painful. And that's why a lot of people who have shame really feel so inherently not only bad but sad inside that they often go to unhealthy coping mechanisms like using drugs or alcohol or developing an eating disorder or other unhealthy behaviors because they're trying to escape that pain of being in that shame spiral at all times. And unfortunately, when we don't talk about our family struggle, when we hide what's going on from different family members, when we keep secrets in the family, the entire family system can develop a sense of shame. And this can be so damaging because it not only then transfers a feeling of shame to every individual family member, but it actually pervades the entire family system to a point that the family system can't stay intact anymore. And if you know of families who have exploded and nobody talks to each other anymore, and I might as well not even have a family, I never talk to my siblings or my parents or anybody in my family, that's usually because there was so much shame in the family system, and that pain was so great that the family could not survive. And so we don't want that to happen, right? So we really want to talk about this shame piece. It's so powerful. And if your loved one is in a treatment center and you're doing some family work, probably talking about shame. You should be talking about shame because it often is the root cause of some of these unhealthy coping mechanisms like drug or alcohol use. And we have to bring it into light, and we have to talk about it because that's how we get rid of shame. How do you get rid of shame? You talk about your struggle. You find a way to allow yourself to be imperfect and understand that that's okay anyway. You let other people in. You allow yourself to recognize that you are loved and lovable even if you are imperfect, because we're all imperfect. We're all human. None of us is a perfect being. None of us is all good, and that's okay. You're still lovable. You're still worthy of having a fulfilling and amazing life. And it's okay to be vulnerable and talk about some of these uncomfortable feelings so that you can give people a chance to love you anyway and be there for you and be your support person. And if you feel like you're dealing with a lot of shame, Brene Brown is a wonderful, wonderful researcher to look into. If you haven't heard of her already, many people have. And she talks a lot about shame and getting over shame. But in this family systems dynamic, we've got to talk about shame, and we've got to talk about it openly with all family members, including the siblings, including the young siblings. It's okay to talk about this in age-appropriate ways and to say, look, we all struggle, and guess what? Our family struggles too, and that's okay, right? We're imperfect as a family, and that's okay. All families are imperfect, and that's okay. And it's important to talk through some of these things. And when you're in a family meeting, if you're the grown-up, if you're the adult, or one of the adults, it can be really powerful to share with your children, with the younger siblings, with your young one who is struggling and in treatment, where you feel like you have been imperfect and that it's okay. And you're modeling that it's okay to be vulnerable and talk about imperfection, and that you still love yourself and know that you're a good parent, And it's okay for everybody to share when they feel like they've struggled or not done something perfectly. I had this amazing, this was many years ago, but an amazing family session in which there were 3 siblings who in the family, and the oldest sibling had to go to treatment, but he was now out of treatment, and we were having a family meeting, we were having a family session, and they had the middle sibling was the savior, right? He had really took on this role of being the mediator, and he did everything right, and he got the best grades, and he was always the perfect kid, because that was the role he took on when the family really began to struggle. You might recognize that in one of your own children. And I was really worried about this kid because it was hard for him to let himself be imperfect and let himself struggle, because he had seen so much other struggle with his other sibling and in his family. And anyway, we had this session, and the parents were divorced, and the dad and the mom were both there, and the mom's husband, she was remarried, was there too. And the mom was brave enough to say, I recognize that when I got remarried, I did that too fast. And I know that it seemed fast to everybody, that I had only introduced the new husband to everybody a couple months before, and then suddenly we got married. And it was because I didn't want to hurt your dad's feelings. I didn't want to hurt, she's talking to her kids, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I felt ashamed that I had this new relationship. I had hidden the new relationship for a while because I felt like it was something that was going to make everybody upset, and I didn't know what to do with all of those feelings. And so we just hurried up and got married when we knew we were going to, because I just had to kind of get it over with in a weird way. And I recognized that was really really not the best way to handle getting married and bringing a new person into the family. And I look over, and the middle child, the perfect child, was just crying. He was just crying and crying and crying. And it was such a beautiful moment, because the mom gave him a hug, and the dad and the new dad and the siblings, and they were all there to support him. And he was able to say, yeah, Mom, I'm so glad you said that, because I felt really abandoned. I felt really shocked, and I felt like I felt isolated, that I didn't recognize, or you didn't share with me that you had this new relationship until right when you were ready to get married. And that was really hard for me. And most importantly, he was able to say, and I was mad at you, Mom. I can say I was mad at you when you did that. I was really mad, and I didn't know what to do with those feelings. I got really angry. And that was so healthy for him to be able to say. We have to give the siblings space to say, I'm angry that something in the family dynamic isn't quite right. I'm angry that my sibling is taking up all of the attention because he's having or she's having a mental health issue. I'm angry that my parents are getting divorced. We have to allow space for our children to express their emotions, even the negative ones, because not only does that allow for the emotions themselves to flow freely, which means that they won't get stuck and they won't get bigger and bigger and bigger in this stuck place. They'll be allowed to flow freely, and they can talk about them. But we're also heading off shame when we allow our young ones to talk about their negative emotions and still love them anyway. Say, I get that you were angry. That makes sense. I still love you. You're still great. These are the things that we have to do to combat shame and to combat family shame, right? So we need to talk about, not keep secrets, not keep things hidden, not keep things isolated, because that's what causes shame. We need to talk about what's going on in the family system, and then we also need to find ways to talk to the outside world about what is happening with our family. And that can be really tricky sometimes. And I know that people come from different family systems, different communities, different ways of thinking about sharing family struggle outside of the family. But I promise you that your family will be healthier, you will be healthier, your family members will feel better and be more connected if you can find a way to share with other families what you're going through. And if you can find a way to share without feeling ashamed with the community that you're in, that you have a young adult, an emerging adult in your family system who's struggling. It's okay to say, my son is in treatment right now, but he's doing really well. Now, am I suggesting that you go to your local supermarket with a bullhorn and, scream as loud as you can, my daughter is addicted to meth? No, I'm not saying that's a good idea. But I am saying that it's really important to work in the family system to talk about how are we going to answer questions outside of the family. When somebody at the grocery store says, hey, I noticed your 16-year-old isn't around anymore. My daughter goes to school with your daughter and I noticed that she's not in school. Is everything okay? And it's really important that you talk with the family about how you're going to handle those situations outside of the house so that you aren't flooded with sadness or shock or shame when somebody asks you that question and you don't know what to say, or you don't completely isolate yourself from the community completely because you don't want to have to answer those questions if somebody talks about it. So it's really important that you come together as a family and talk about the fact that you will be asked questions in the community, at school, about what has happened to your loved one who is in treatment now or is struggling, and to be really open about the fact that it's okay to talk about it. And we have to allow the siblings in the family to have their own story about how they're experiencing what's going on in the family. And this is an important piece. So yes, you can come together as a family and decide, hey, here are some possibilities of things we could say if people come up and ask us where our daughter is. We can say, she's really had some struggles lately and she's getting the support she needs, and we're so happy that she's getting the support she needs. Or you can even say, my daughter has a drug and alcohol problem and she is in treatment right now, and we're just so proud of her that she's taken this step to get her life back, and we're here to support her every step of the way. And you can come up with as a family, for how you want to handle those questions and what you want to say. And I know that it can be really hard for some parents to share these struggles out in the open. And I know a lot of us have come from maybe more conservative families who, you were taught you don't share what's happening outside of the family. What stays in the family, what happens in the family stays in the family. But I promise you that those kinds of dynamics are only going to build more shame and disconnection. And so I really encourage you as a family to find a way to talk about how you're going to interact with the community and share your struggle to the extent that you're comfortable with the community at large. That said, your siblings at home, right? Especially if they're teenagers and they're old enough to have their own social networks and their own social dynamics outside of the family, it really is important that we allow them to have their own experience and to be able to talk about their own experience. And if they feel, you might be a parent that says, let's just say that your sister is struggling and that she's getting the support she needs. I don't want to say addiction outside of the family. That's really hard for me to tolerate. But your teenager might say, you know what? It's been really hard for me to have a sibling who has been going through all of this struggle and now is in treatment. And when my friends ask me what's going on, you have to allow that teenager to say, hey, I want to say, yeah, my sister has a drug problem and she's in treatment now and I hope she gets better. We have to allow each individual family member to have their experience and to be able to share their experience as they feel comfortable. So having this conversation in one of your family sessions and family meetings is really important, and you can share with each other, what are you comfortable sharing outside of the house? How do we want to talk about this outside of the house as a family system, and come to an agreement and recognize that people in the family system might have different feelings about how they want to share what's going on with the family, and that's okay. And we have to give each other room to have our own individual experiences within the family system as well. A lot of support exists out there for families who are going through this, and it's important, if you are struggling with talking about what's happening with your family, to know that you can find support systems of families who are going through exactly what you're going through. And so it might be easier to talk to those folks because there isn't as much stigma within those groups. And so that's actually what we're going to talk about here, the last piece, finding family support and resources, and working with a family coach or therapist, and the power of asking for help and creating community. It's hard to do this all on your own. This is really, really difficult when you have a child who is struggling, and especially when you have other siblings at home as well. And it's so helpful to find other families who are going through the same thing and get support from other families who are going through the same thing. If you're here watching this conference, you've taken at least the very great first step of reaching out, looking on the internet for the support resources that exist out there. And hopefully you have some resources in your community. Some people find themselves in smaller communities where there aren't a lot of support resources for families, and they kind of have to create their own. But the good news is, with the internet and these online conferences and Facebook groups, you're able to find support even online if you don't have a lot of support within your community. But whatever support feels right for you, it's important that you do some research and start reaching out and start finding some support. When we talk about this family systems work and having these family meetings and family sessions, it's absolutely normal for a lot of emotions to come up, for a lot of feelings to come up around what's happening within the family and with the young adult or adolescent who is in crisis. And so it's often very helpful to bring in a professional family coach or a family therapist who can help you work through these stages of, talking about with the family what's going on, and setting family goals, and working together as a family to move forward and to find health and healing, not only for the family system, but for every individual within the family system. It can be really helpful to have some professional, objective help along the way. So I do encourage you to look for a family therapist or family coach. There are lots of them here speaking at this conference, and I am available at any time as well, either here in the Los Angeles area, or to just give you advice about how to find somebody in your area to work with to help your family through this struggle. I really, really thank you so much for being with me today. And here's my contact information, which I think is on the website here too. It's just drhollydaniels.com, holly@drhollydaniels.com. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. My heart is with you, and I really wish you well and your family the best always. Thanks so much.